Okay, the Western Heritage, Chapter 12, The Age of Religious Wars. Here's a picture of a massacre that occurred where Protestants were being massacred by Catholics while they're in church. And this is the official start of the French Wars of Religion. The Counter-Reformation, otherwise known as the Catholic Church Strikes Back, was a reform movement in the Catholic Church in response to the Reformation of the Protestant Church. We'll kind of cover that in the Council of Trent. Catholics devoted to one head and one law, such as an absolute monarchy. So Catholics favored absolute monarchy. They enjoyed the Baroque art style, which presented life in a grandiose three-dimensional displays. Baroque art is very ostentatious or very huge. And here's a picture of it. The one on the bottom is simple. The one on the top is Baroque. Pretty easy to compare and contrast on that. Politiques. You need this for one of your FRQs that has to do with the three politiques. They were intellectuals of the 1500s, criticized religious strife between Catholics and Protestants. Politiques were above the religious wars. They were rulers who urged tolerance and moderation and became indifferent to religion and became known as politiques. They weren't necessarily indifferent to religion. They held the country above religious squabblings. Elizabeth I was the most successful politique. That is an answer to a test question. Protestant repression in France. French Protestants known as Huguenots. It's important that you remember that a Huguenot is Protestant. Once again, we see Charles V started the first wave of Protestant persecution in 1525. In 1524, Protestants arrested and leader John Calvin sent into exile. So the Protestants are starting to make headway back. And the Edict of Fontainebleau makes Protestants subject to the Inquisition. The Edict of Chateaubriand establishes more measures against the Protestants. So each act is a wave pushing against the Protestant movement, especially in France. Later, the Bourbon and Montmorency Chatillon families become sympathetic to the Huguenots. The appeal of Calvinism. Calvinism curries favor with powerful aristocrats like Prince of Condé, who converted to Calvinism. Calvinism is a Protestant religion. The powerful combination of now political and religious, the Huguenots, dissidents made Calvinism a viable religion in Catholic France. Because they had power, they were able to become a viable religion. Okay, now the Medicis and the Guises. Catherine de Medicis. She was also in a free response question. She's a politique. She's unsuccessful in attempts to reconcile the difference between the Protestants and the Catholic Guises, a dominant radical Catholic group of Eastern France with religious toleration. So, in order for her to keep power, she has to balance that between radical Catholicism and practical politism or politicking, aka Machiavelli. The Duke of Guise massacres Protestant worshippers in Champagne, causing the French Wars of Religion. The Medicis and her young king's son go under the control of the Guises. And this is Catherine de Guises. And at the Peace of Saint-Germain and Laye, 3 wars of religion end with the deaths of the Duke of Guise, Protestant military Condé, and the Huguenot victory. And all this kind of comes out in the St. Bartholomew letter that you had to read. There's a peace treaty that acknowledges the Protestant nobility, grants Huguenots religious freedom, and the right to fortify their cities. So watch and wait as the Protestants get more and more freedoms and rights. Freedom religion and right to fortify their cities. That means that they could put walls up around their cities so that they couldn't be invaded. Catherine, who once supported the Protestants, turns to the Guises, fearing a Protestant leader, Coligny, would draw France into a war with Spain that could not be handled by her son. Now think of Isabel I, because his son is too young. Now the St. Bartholomew Days Massacre. Catherine convinces her son, Charles IX, that a Huguenot coup is about to happen. So in response, on the 24th of 1572, Coligny and 3,000 Huguenots are massacred in Paris. Within 3 days, 20,000 other Protestants are also killed in France. The Protestant cause becomes one of sheer survival. In response, Protestant writers call for an active defense of religious rights. That's 20,000 people killed. In comes Henry Navarre. Henry III was a politic who attempts to compromise with the warring religions to save the nation. Remember, a politic is someone who's trying to put the nation above the religious wars, which was more important to him than religion. Now, Henry Navarre is an important person in this section because he leads the Protestant in turning back Henry III's attempt to rout the Protestants at the Day of Barricades. Henry Navarre will also be known as Henry IV. The two Henrys are forced into an alliance against the Guises, but Henry III is assassinated, and Henry Navarre becomes Henry IV, a Protestant king of France. Problem: Catholics are very nervous about a Protestant king based on the fact that they've killed over 20,000 Protestants. Henry IV, basically a politic, converts to Catholicism, horrifying the Huguenots, which are Protestants. They think that they've been double-crossed. And there's Henry Navarre on his horse. And finally, the Edict of Nantes is a formal religious settlement that gave Protestants religious freedom within their own towns and territories. The violence stops, but hostilities remain. A Catholic fanatic assassinates Henry IV in 1610. And that's where we'll stop with this one.